And so when I think about visual storytelling or just storytelling in general, I really try to look at a project in depth and think about how we can bring the design or concepts or just someone's brand or just a mission statement or their values to life. And so I think that's really important to think about on every project, whether they're big or small projects.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode of Behind the Signs. We are chatting with Lauren Stern of Studio 618 in Charlotte, North Carolina. So Lauren, welcome to today's episode.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, why don't we get started by you telling us a little bit about yourself and how you get started in the sign industry?
So I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I have over 10 years of experience within the experiential graphic design field and worked at a variety of types of companies, such as small sign shops, and then a more smaller boutique design firm, and then a larger architectural and design firm. So it was a great mix of experiences that have got me here today.
That's great. I went through your website and Studio 618, and first of all, your portfolio is super impressive. I mean, you should be really, really proud of that work there. So, but one thing right at the beginning section of your website, the hero section of your website, you say, "We are storytellers. Let us tell your story." So how in your sort of design thinking do you look at design and signage as part of storytelling, and how do you help your clients? How do you approach design with your clients?
So one of the things that I really had the opportunity to learn in my past experiences before starting my own consultancy was really thinking about the strategy of design and the why versus the how. And so those are things I tried to implement in every project I do at Studio 618. And so when I think about visual storytelling or just storytelling in general, I really try to look at a project in depth and think about how we can bring the design or concepts or just someone's brand or just a mission statement or their values to life. And so I think that's really important to think about on every project, whether they're big or small projects.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. And I think a lot of sign shops, when you think about a sign designer at a typical sign shop, can a sign designer design a banner? Can they design a channel letter set? What is the difference between just designing a sign? A client comes in and says, "Hey, I need a channel letter set. This is what I need. Get it done. I'll design it. I'll put it up." And then the difference between that approach to design in a sign shop and experiential graphic designer, which is what you are.
I think it's really just diving in again, like with the strategy of it, really thinking of connecting people to place and thinking about more than just what a design or a sign will be on the wall, like what's the strategy behind that sign and why the materials are chosen, and then even just going beyond just signs in general, like what else can be designed to elevate a space and tell that story better. So one thing that I really like to do at Studio 618 are custom focal walls, things that are more artful, given my artistic background in digital illustration, watercolor, and fiber art. So I try to bring those hobbies and those things I do in my spare time to life in these projects. And so those elements like custom focal walls really bring those stories to life, or custom garage graphics, or just elevating the design space with really tying in the interior design and just the architectural details of the branding, like really bringing all those assets together and using that to influence the design. I think really elevates the design, and that's what I think about with experiential graphic design. And it's really, people call it environmental graphics,
Right.
graphics, experiential design. I've heard them all. So I think I gravitate towards experiential design just because I feel like it's, experience is really elevating the space and really bringing a design to life in many many ways, not just with a with just a sign.
Right. And yeah, I always sort of referred to EGD as environmental graphic design. So, yeah. And the thing about experiential too, for sign shops, just on a basic level, if you're approaching a project with the idea of what the client experience is, there's a whole lot more opportunity to just sell more stuff. I mean, you can really, if a customer comes in and you're approaching design as an experience, you'll have the opportunity to sell a whole lot more than just the channel letter sign that goes over the door. So,
Well, also, I think, with the types of projects and clients I work with, it's like, how can you set yourself and your project apart from someone else? Because there's a lot of signage companies and developers and other types of clients out there that are all, wanting to elevate their spaces. And so, how can you set yourself apart from the rest? I think really bringing in those elements and just elevating your space in as many ways as possible and having a positive visitor experience from
mhm.
coming into a workplace. The first thing you might see is a parking garage. Like, how can you elevate that experience and bring in your design and those branding assets and other things into just that element, and then just going into the space itself, how you can elevate that space in many ways besides just signage, whether it's
Right.
the garage graphics or focal walls or wayfinding in various conceptual and abstract ways, and also just signage in general.
So, what kind of clients do you normally work with?
So I actually have worked with actually 14 clients so far in the past 2 years, on over 50 projects in 12 states plus DC and throughout 30 cities all across the country.
I saw that on your website. Yeah, that's great. It's like you're all over the place.
I love the fact that I'm able to work on a variety of projects with really great clients all over the country. I have a lot of work in North Carolina, but also I used to live in Washington, D.C., Virginia, Maryland area for over 10 years. So I have a lot of work there, as well as projects on the West Coast, North and South. And and so the clients I work with are commercial and residential developers. I work with signage companies, design firms, small businesses, marketing agencies, transportation consultants, and neighborhood associations. But my top two, I would say, would be the developers and signage companies.
So with signage companies, so if I'm a small operation and we do a couple electric sign projects a month, and we have this opportunity, an apartment complex, for example, right? They're great for experiential graphic design. Where would you start the project with them if they wanted to work with you and partner with you on the design part of it?
So I have several design build projects that I've done recently. Two actually have just been installed, and I had the opportunity to fly up to Washington, D.C. to take photos of them, and both of them were multifamily projects. And they were both design builds with Gelberg signs in DC. And with those projects, as an example, we partnered together and they did the fabrication portion and were in throughout the process communicating with the client and myself the entire time, and then I did all the design portion. So just providing all those, it really depends on the scope and budget, but with those two examples, I was involved in the entire process from concept to design development to uh, shop drawing review, proof review, sample review, and then looking at all the punch walking the space and seeing how everything came together. And so with those two projects, I was very involved from just concept development, but also did location plans and message schedules as well, and created a robust bid document that was given to the fabricator to create the signage proofs from. But I've also done projects where I just did concept ideation for a project, and then that signage company would just take the project all the way to installation. So it really just depends on people's budget and scope. and how they
Great.
want to be involved in the process. I personally love being involved from start to finish, but
Yeah.
if your budget only allows for a small part of my involvement, then I love just concept ideating and at least starting something, and then having a signage company just run with that. So I've done custom signage projects with fabrication companies. I've also done conceptual designs for parking garages. I've done smaller monument signs, or really any size monument sign,
Yeah.
like a large community project for a retirement village. So interior and exterior design. So a good mix of work, as well as all the various types of work I do directly with developers, such as parking garage graphics, custom signage for interior and exterior, artful focal walls, and just branding and naming of projects as well. So a good mix of work. And I love
Good.
working on everything, as long as I can add that artistic spin to projects. I think that helps set Studio 618 apart from other firms, because really everything has that artistic spin. And one project I wanted just to highlight was that I mentioned earlier, that I do fiber art. I actually had the opportunity, that I'm currently working on, adding a custom fiber art focal wall to one of my multifamily projects in Clayton, North Carolina. And it's what's fun about it is I'm combining the fiber art element with custom metal dimensional letters, and
Hmm.
working directly with a signage fabrication company to create this custom loom. And that company is Sign Art. And so what's nice is Sign Art's creating this custom loom for me in the dimensional letters, and and then I'm creating the fiber art piece. And it's really nice to be able to work together and create this custom, unique feature that's going to really set this apartment community apart from everywhere else, especially because the history has a tie to, the location of this space has a tie to a textile mill that's over 100 years old, and tying that in together with this art piece and just the project in general, I think really will set this community apart from others, and this developer as well.
That sounds cool. Is it the Sign Art Group out of Massachusetts?
No, they're in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, they're in Charlotte. Okay. Yeah, because I think the Sign Art Group in Massachusetts is wholesaler. But anyway, well, that's great. That sounds exciting. That's cool. That sounds like a really fun project. So, okay, so I want to kind of all your passion for experiential graphic design has led you to write a children's book. So I wanted to spend some time talking about that. Signs have much to say. It's so cute. So what kind of led you to, get inspired to do that?
So I've always been, like my website says, visual storyteller. I'm a storyteller, I guess, through and through. I started writing stories when I was in elementary school. We had the opportunity where I was at Lansdowne Elementary to write stories, and our teachers would type them up for us and give us hardback books, and we could illustrate our drawings in them. And so I actually still have all those books, and from that experience onward, I always enjoyed creating stories. And about 2 years ago, I was with my niece in Atlanta, and I was visiting with her and her family. And I was reading stories to her, and I noticed that a lot of the stories that they had, and just stories I saw in general for children, were about various topics. I've seen some about architecture and coding, and just engineering and medical topics, but nothing about signage and wayfinding. So I thought in my head at that moment, wouldn't it be neat to create a story about signage and wayfinding for children? And
Yeah.
so I actually sat on that idea. It ruminated in my head for about a year. And actually, from July 2021, when I first had that idea, I started the actual book in July of 2022. And from then on, for about 8 months, I worked on this book. And I had the opportunity to partner with James Bevellander and he lives in Australia, and he did all the illustrations for this book. And he really did a great job
Yeah.
personifying all the signage characters, giving them cute little faces and googly eyes and accessories. And I think that really helped lighten just the tone of the book and really just make people smile. I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of googly eyes, so
Well, it's really, really cute.
googly eyes I love. So the goal really for the book was to educate children about signage and wayfinding, not only just regulatory signs like stop signs and such, but also wayfinding in hospitals or at the zoo or on a trail. I mean, really everywhere. I think once people see this book, then it's one of those things like once you see something, you can't unsee it. So now
Yeah.
I think people will gain an appreciation and understanding of the importance of signage and wayfinding. And I think it's important to think about these things at an early age because you're going to interact with signage and wayfinding throughout your entire life. And
Right.
also, I think it's just a great learning tool. But one other thing I like to think about with this book is it's a children's book about signage and wayfinding, obviously for kids, but it's also a book about signage and wayfinding for adults. I think you can get something, especially in the design industry, you can get something out of it from various ages. The illustrations are very detailed, they're full of color. The verbiage throughout the book is simple lines of text that's rhymy and easy to read. So I think you if you just listen to it, you get one thing out of it. If you read it, you get another thing out of it. And
Mhm.
obviously, if you're experienced within the design industry, I think you get something else out of it. So I think it works on various levels. One thing I wanted to mention was that this book was self-published by myself, and I actually reached out to members of the design community to help pay for some of the costs. So I was lucky to have 21 members of the design community help pay for some of the costs of the book, and a lot of them were signage companies. Southwood Corporation was actually my top tier sponsor, which I greatly appreciate their involvement. But I also had other signage companies, painting companies, and smaller design firms, as well as SEGD, which is the
Right.
for experiential graphic design as sponsors. And one thing I really wanted to get from that experience was to have a resource in the back of the book for people like a dentist or a doctor reading this book to their child. They could use that as a reference for later if they needed assistance on a project. And also, that information is on the Signs Have Much to Say website. And then I also just thought it would be fun since we're a multidisciplinary field to get people of all fields involved, like
Mhm.
painters, signage companies, design firms. And I think that was a successful element that was in the book. Were just bringing all these people together and then showcasing the logos depending on the type of tier they were in various ways within the book, like a billboard or a
Mhm.
sign company installing something or a painting company, their truck uh, with their logo on it. It's all artful and intentional throughout. And I just think that helps just bring the idea across of multidisciplinary fields coming
Yeah.
together and then as a resource. So those are the things I really wanted to get across in the book.
So, Lauren, the last thing I wanted to ask you was if I was a sign designer and designing, in a sign shop and wanted to learn more about experiential graphic design, what advice would you give me and what resources or where should I go to learn more and get plugged in?
I think that sagd.org is a great website and resource, the Society for Experiential Graphic Design. They have a variety of work examples, such as award winning projects from various types of design firms all over the world and country, and which is great to really see people's process and how they went about a project. Also, it has great resources for books you can pick up, public and private videos from events such as the conferences and other talks they've done throughout the years, and then a whole mix of people you can just reach out and talk to from different design firms. And I think it's great that they have different chapters throughout the country that you
Mhm.
can join. I'm a co-chair of the Charlotte chapter, so I think it's good to just network with people within your community and just ask questions. So I think that's a great resource. I use their website all the time for inspiration and to just reach out to people. The other thing I wanted to just mention is that I have learned a lot from my fellow solopreneurs and small businesses in EGD. And one way I've done that is through the group I founded and lead called Design Chew, which is a multidisciplinary group of EGD designers all over the world, and it's primarily for small businesses and solopreneur owners. And I think that it's a great resource for people who are like me, who are small businesses, who often feel siloed working by themselves. And I think it's great to have that community to reach out to and have conversations with. And so we meet every other week on Zoom, and it's just such an inspiring group of people. And I love the topics we talk about. We have conversations about proposal writing or even celebrating our loser concepts or a variety of project shares. And we have now guest speakers.
Wow.
Organize. And so we actually have our guest speaker on our meeting this coming Friday, Craig Berger, who's a very influential, well-known designer in signage and wayfinding. And so I think it's great to bring in people from the community just to have conversations and just inspire each other. So I would just say to people out there who are interested in learning more or starting their own business, and just getting themselves out there more is just show your work and just reach out to people and network with others and start conversations. I think I wouldn't be where I am today with my business if I didn't do those things. And I also wouldn't be where I became with my book with sponsors if I didn't just reach out to people. I mean, the worst thing people can say is no. Honestly, ghosting is worse than no, in my opinion. But you would be surprised what you can get with just asking people. People
Yeah.
willing to connect with you and just have a conversation, especially if you're bringing something to that conversation as well.
Well, this has been a really, really helpful conversation. I think design thinking and design forward sign shops that are focused on design first. I always think to myself, if I was ever to start another sign shop, it'd be me and I'd partner with a really great designer, and then everything else can kind of be built around that. And I think a lot of sign shops need to think about that. But in any case, we'll make sure we put links to all this stuff, to your book, to your group. Everything will be in the notes. So if you're wanting to follow up with Lauren, all the information will be there. And Lauren, we are so grateful for you spending time with us today, and we'll stay in touch. I feel like we need to have you back again. There's so much to talk about when it comes to experiential graphic design.
Oh yeah, for sure. I love talking about signage and wayfinding and just experiential graphic design in general. So I would love to be back anytime you want.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye. Thanks so much for listening. Please comment below and be sure to share with your sign industry friends. Behind the Signs is provided to you by your friends at Sign Tracker, a cloud-based project management and quoting system for sign shops of all types and sizes. Try it free at sign-tracker.com.